and welcome to Gold Theory. I am your host, Gregory Yates. Today, we're talking about global brand, local relevance, how to manage personalization at scale. And today, I'm lucky to have two guests from State Street Global Advisors joining me. Sam Dwyer-Connolly, hailing from Boston. She's Vice President, Global Head of Institutional Digital Engagement. And Peter Kent, calling in from London, who is Vice President, EMEA Marketing. Sam, Peter, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. And I know that it was, a little bit of a challenge as we were trying to figure out time differences, which is like a perfect segue into really what today's conversation is about. It's how do you take a global brand but also localize it. But before we really get into that topic, I think it would be fascinating to learn more about your backgrounds, how maybe you even entered the marketing realm in the first place, and then also your story up until State Street. And we're going to kind of get into what you're doing with the organization and how you're really taking this large behemoth of a brand and being able to translate that locally with all the nuances to different audiences across global markets. So Sam, I'd love to start with you, if you could tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm currently the Global Head of Institutional Digital Engagement. My journey did not start in financial services. So I went to undergraduate school for graphic design. And after spending a year being a graphic designer at a private school, I decided that it wasn't in me to sit at a desk all day and not communicate with other people.
Yes.
So from there, I decided to explore a role in account management at an agency, Hill Holiday in Boston. And simultaneously, I earned my graduate degree from Emerson in integrated marketing. Okay. And so that provided me with a really sort of informative set of years where I was able to understand what I found most interesting about marketing. And really where I landed is that I really find data-driven decision-making to be sort of where the rubber hits the road. And that's where I wanted to focus in my next step in my career.
Sure. Yeah, it's like art and science blending together is what you're really doing. It's great.
And so lucky enough, right as I was kind of coming to this conclusion, a position opened up in North America at State Street, focused on the retirement business. And it was a new position that they were exploring. And it was meant to this person was meant to build a digital strategy for North America defined contribution. I was in that role probably until, COVID hit. I don't know if I can say that word here. It's going to be like a blacklist situation.
COVID, what's that? Is that something that happened on a global scale? I'm forgetting now.
So I was working specifically on retirement in North America until that happened. And then once that happened, everyone else was sort of like, oh man, we really need to focus on digital. Because a lot of financial services marketing until then was in person. We were still doing print quite a bit up until then too. So I think for me in my role, the biggest transition from sort of the more traditional methods of advertising in financial services to more digitally focused strategies were sort of forced when the pandemic happened. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't go anywhere. So that's when my role expanded. And I was lucky enough to be able to build out my team globally. And now we work with Peter and others to build digital strategies, execute on those campaigns, and then optimize and read out on them. So I actually still get to use my graphic design background in designing the slides. So a little bit of fun there. But so that's kind of where I am in my career, and how I got there is thankfully pretty linear.
No, that's great. No, thank you for the background. And it's like really quite interesting kind of the evolution and how you ended up where you are now, because it's a combination of you have agency experience, then you also have brand experience, and now like really with that global experience, kind of bringing everything truly together. It's sort of, it's an interesting story. And as you said, you still get to be creative and still leverage your kind of design skill sets as well. So it's great. Peter, you are up. I'd love to hear about your background. Let our audience know kind of your history and how you ended up with State Street.
Sure thing. So I actually started out in recruitment for a few months, and I couldn't hack it and left. So I think any recruiter that survives the time is made of sterner stuff than I am. But it was a good grounding in kind of commerciality and sales, right at the knife edge of it, really. And my dad had always been in business, and I've been surrounded by his career growing up. We moved to Germany. I lived in America, obviously now in London. And so I knew I wanted to get into business per se, but not quite sure what I wanted to do within it. I kind of fell into a commercial marketing role out of uni. I didn't do marketing at uni, but I fell into this more commercial marketing role. And I've stayed within marketing ever since. My background is not in asset management, where I am now, or really in corporate businesses. I've got 15 years experience, built predominantly in startups, in the fintech space in London. I guess like my big belief as a marketer is, marketing should have a seat at the top table. So be involved in product and business decisions. We're not just the people that put on events or send emails. And, I know Sam's smiling. She's a big advocate of that as well, at State Street. And it's a message I just keep trying to hammer home. I built brands from zero to exit in the startup space. And it is a different beast, dealing with VCs and debt facilities and everything else than it is in a corporate environment. But ultimately, you are trying to do the same thing, which is get your product, your service into the hands of your customer, and doing that in a simplified in a simple way as you can. That's the job of a marketer. So yeah, outside of work, outside of the day job, I do a bit of advisory still in the startup world. I'm pretty passionate about inclusion, and so I advise a kind of a B Corp consumer lender in the UK, focused on giving everyone their kind of fundamental right to credit. There's a lot of people that miss out just because of the bureau system that we have in the UK in the finance space. And so this B Corp, we underwrite and we risk assess individuals using open banking, which is a big kind of regulatory innovation in Europe, and so the business is focused on that. So yeah, that's me, and it's been a very pleasurable couple of years getting to know Sam and working at State Street.
No, that's great. So I definitely have some follow-up questions, because one, I want to learn more about kind of your fintech background. And that's interesting in taking brands from sort of zero to, as you said, to either sale or even potentially going public. But one thing that really resonated with me was the pure fact that you both are in line with where I think marketing has been trying to go and is continuing to go, which is a growth driving function, right? Historically, people think, especially I'd say in the B2B world or even kind of sales marketing, oh, just take what we have and make it look pretty, right? When no, marketing is here. We have the data, we have the information, we can build models now to actually be a true growth driver for the business, which helps the business better understand even where to invest, where to, divest, and kind of help to guide the overarching movement of the brand itself. And you see that in other industries where new products are created just because kind of the marketing team conducting research, developing new ways of reaching audiences. So it's really become a growth driving engine. And especially to do that on a global scale and understanding the nuances are really quite hard. But tell me a little bit more about kind of what you've done in that fintech space, because that's an interesting place right now. And I love how your progression in your career, not only are you helping people with their lives through State Street, but then also through Plend as well, which is really an opportunity to kind of help individuals, across different markets with their credit and to be able to get sort of the support that they need, essentially.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if this is the right answer to your question, but in a business like State Street or other corporates, the marketing team is vast, and you are, as a business, as an employee, you are helping steer a big tanker, kind of 1 degree left, 1 degree right. And you can have huge impact from doing that, but ultimately the ship's already moving. In the startup world, there is no ship, really. And so you are building everything from scratch. And with that comes huge opportunity and, success if you get things right, but equally huge risk if you don't. And I'll always remember this, probably from the rest of my career. There was a guy really great guy, founder that I worked at actually the last startup before I joined State Street. And I thought I was being really whizzy by creating this entire digital launch strategy. We built the brand, we built all the campaigns, everything was saved in kind of the Facebook Ads Manager or whatever other platforms we were using. And I went skiing and on launch week, but I felt really cool because I had all the apps on my phone and I could just flick on all the campaigns and off we go. We were live, and it felt like the modern way of doing things, although slightly rogue. And anyway, I flicked all these campaigns on, came back a week later because I was like, I'll just let them run, see what happens. Obviously, spend limits. And came back and delivered a load of leads, all of which were garbage. And I remember my founder, the CEO, going, so Peter, we're a consumer lender, and we don't write any loans. And I was like, And there was no one to hide behind because there's no sales team, there's no one else in marketing. I'm the sole marketer, sole growth engine, and I think you've got to pivot really quickly. In the startup world and put your hands up when you're wrong. And all of those campaigns were in the bin the next day. And we found another channel, affiliate marketing, that worked wonders and grew the business from there. But it was, that kind of roller coaster journey that, close to the engine of the business journey is super exciting, but really, really stressful. So I think you can do really quick test and learn, really quick innovation, see where you fail, see where you win. There's excitement in that, and you can prove out the value of marketing very, very easily. At somewhere like State Street, a large organization, you can definitely prove the value of marketing. And Sam can give you loads of insight on that, I'm sure, and will over the course of the time we have together. But you have to be a lot more kind of focused on outlining what success looks like at the start of the campaign, defining that, and then measuring it through the campaign and understanding how to say whether we achieved it or whether we didn't at the end. And without that narrative, you can just end up doing marketing for that has no real rhyme or reason behind it. And that's where we're trying to move away from.
Yeah, it's hard because you want to like balance this test and learn, but at the same time, like say, a company like State Street, because you already have, you could say benchmarks, you have history, data to pull from, which could make potentially building a model a little easier versus a startup starting from scratch. There's no benchmark. You can get some industry benchmarks, but every company that I've been with, and the same thing, I've been with startup, mid, and enterprise level organizations. There's like a framework that you can apply, but how you go to market with that framework kind of differs, and the response that you're going to get is different, right? Because there's so many different factors involved, which could include the strength of the brand versus an unknown brand, right? So it's not easy and it's hard. And I think the true takeaway here that people should learn is when you turn a campaign on, do not go skiing for a week.
That's the message you should take from it. Yeah.
So that's learning number one. And then if you do that and you come back and they're all the wrong leads, that's when you sit down with your CEO and you have a conversation and say, look, our research has uncovered we have to augment our product, and I helped the business pivot faster than we would have done if we hadn't run this campaign.
Why were you not sat with me when I was going through that turnaround?
So again, marketing in theory is helping the business, but so Sam, I'm gonna turn this over to you. We're gonna chat about like global relevance. So a question that I have for you, so SSGA, right? So what is the approach, and how do you balance global consistency with a local nuance, right? Because it's not easy, because a brand has its guidelines, it has its go to market, but yet that needs to be translated to those nuances, right? There's cultural nuances, there is just language, just differences, right? So how do you translate that, but then also how do you work with teams in all of the different markets? Because there needs to be I guess, level of autonomy maybe as well, so they're creative. Tell me about that process and how you've been able to manage that and build that.
Yeah, sure. So I also want to touch on one thing about the data piece that we were just talking about, because it's almost like at companies like State Street, we have the opposite problem of not knowing. It's like information overload. So what do you do with all of that data? I think a really important piece is putting together the infrastructure to extract these key insights for every market, for every audience.
Yeah.
So going back to the question that you just asked me, I would rely on Peter to help me understand the nuances of the strategies that he is working on in EMEA. And he would rely on me to bring global insight into what has been working digitally. So for me, the collaboration that Peter and I have is ideal because it's very open information sharing. You know, there are no feelings associated. We really use data to speak about what is important in the market and what is important globally. And then what comes together is kind of a compromise of the two. So it really is an open dialogue between what are the goals, what is important to our business in this specific region, what is important to our business, like how does that align to what's important to the business globally, and how do we make that come to life digitally with what we know the best practices are globally and locally. So really it is understanding all the different data sets that you have, bringing them all together to come up with something that works in each region.
Which I'll tell you isn't an easy task, to be quite frank. It's like, so for instance, when I was over at Institutional Investor, one of the challenges we had was collecting data from across the entire organization. And I took it under marketing's wing to build really a data lake, an ETL, we'll just say, extract, transform, load. So we were putting data within these systems, working with finance, back tested it for a few years, and it really kind of built a whole new governance structure and really opened up the company's eyes to really what's going on around the business, around the entire globe. It was really quite eye-opening and helped to inform better decision making, right? And it sounds like that's kind of what you're talking about right now, is utilizing the data to really truly help inform those decisions. But then let's take it down like one more level, like personalization at scale. What does that truly mean to you? Does that, I think the holy grail is when someone comes to the website, we already sort of probably know who they are and they're being delivered, we're trying to anticipate what it is that they want at that moment in time, and like that level of personalization maybe eventually will hopefully get there. So it's truly customized to the individual based upon who they are and what they want. Could be marketing conditions, could be anything. What are you like, how are you defining personalization at scale? Is it something that's, the content, tone, timing, like how are you really going about it, and what's it mean to you and how you're executing that?
All of the above.
All of the above.
All
Okay.
of the above.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing will be that we try to make sure happens is that we have relevant content for, and PK, you can speak more eloquently about the content piece, but we can't do anything unless we have relevant content for people with specific needs in a specific region. And we have been working more to get more focused on specific needs within each region for certain cohorts. And really we rely on a sales dialogue, and PK, I'll pass it over to you because I don't want to get too deep into it, but we rely on a dialogue with sales around what do you see clients talking about, prospects talking about, what do we see people engaging with, and where does that come together? How can we create an experience that is curated for those users?
Yeah, I guess just following up from what you're saying, the old school, and everyone's gone through this, but have they? So it's like the old school way of marketing, one to many, one to all. And moving that to one to few or one to one is something that has been discussed for a decade. And what you described at the start of the question, hyper personalization, going to the website, catered headlines, catered products. I've seen demos, I've seen the platforms push this out. I've never really seen a service provider or a product use that to that degree. If you step back and go, okay, what are we honestly doing here? What can we do at scale? I think it's one to few. It's catering content or communication to a subset of clients within your book, whether you're a B2C or a B2B business, and hitting them at a relevant time in their buyer cycle. So if you're a B2B buyer, your buy cycle might be 1-2 years, and so it's helping map out, and Sam works very closely with me on this, map out the different stages that buyer is in their buyer funnel, and making sure they have roughly the right type of content, the right messaging at the right time.
Yes.
That is not a jack of all trades, kind of master of none generic messaging. That is quite pithy thought leadership or pithy product communication. And I think that's how you can drive personalization at scale. I think anything beyond that, maybe I'm old school here, but I think people are lying when they say they do one-to-one at a global level. I just think you either have to have extreme data segmentation or you're making it up. For me, it's the same as startups going, we've got machine learning or we use AI to do this. It's like, do you actually? No, you've just got a pivot table in Excel. So I think the realistic is one to few.
Yeah, and the other part of that is that you started to get to, Peter, was there's a point of diminishing return. Because even with these AI tools, you still need content writers. You still need designers. You still need everyone to sort of feed the machine so that it can pull in a personalized experience. So it's more personalized, but there is a point where it becomes less efficient. And I think PK, that's what you're saying too, is like the point of efficiency that we have seen is one to few, where we can remain efficient, produce content that's meaningful to people, deliver it to them in a way that resonates with them in platforms where they are active, and still be as resource conscious as possible.
On that, there's something that's cropped in my head. It's like there's less room for error there, because if you're one-to-one and you're using data, and actually I'm a buyer, I'm buying some trainers, right? And I go on a website that sells clothing, apparel, trainers, the whole shebang. I go on the homepage, and because they know I'm looking for trainers, just serves me trainers, and the headlines all around trainers, and the journey is focused on buying trainers. But actually, it's a hot day, and I realize I'm out of t-shirts, and I want to buy a t-shirt. The hyper personalization in that experience has broken the CX and made my life more difficult. So there is a limit also as marketers that you need to take on personalization, unless you are a single track product business, or you're super sure that your data is accurate. I think you open yourself up to causing problems with customer experience. So I think the one to few angle on a global scale, if that's what we're talking about, is the right approach, especially for a business like a State Street.
No, and it's definitely hard because, as I'm thinking about it too, like in terms of getting that one-to-one scale, a social media company could basically do that because you've logged into an app and they're collecting data. It's a lot easier to do that, but not in this particular sense that we're talking about here. You're also dealing with different regulations across the globe. So GDPR, for instance, right, which affects Europe, which we do not necessarily have that here, but we have the California Protection Act, and it's sort of kind of disparate, but you still want to protect people's privacy. Also, you mentioned kind of that buying cycle where it's not just one. So that longer buying cycle, 1 to 3 year process on the institutional side, it's not just, an allocator or a chief investment officer. There's a whole center of influence that you need to be able to communicate with, and then bring it down to another audience of wealth management, whether it's family offices, RIAs, and others. They each have their own particular needs, right? But then also, when I'm thinking about this, being able to manage this and being able to manage all of those different persona types and communicate to them the right messaging requires staff, requires technology. How does a company that may have limited resources, human or financial capital, how do you do this at scale? Like, how do you build a tech stack that can get you to where you want that one to few? And I would love to learn really about what you two and the rest of the team have built at State Street to say, okay, we have limited, resources. We'll just say limited, human capital, but we've been able to manage a tech stack and bring these pieces together so we can collect that data properly. So then we can actually put the right information out to that audience that we think would make sense to them. So tell me a little bit about that process and what you've been able to build there.
So what we do is, the way I start, so what we have is a team that manages marketing automation, which would essentially all of those types of tools would fall into that marketing automation realm. And the way that I start working with them is by identifying a problem. And I know PK has done that too. So we'll identify a problem, and then we'll kind of outline what the use case is. So let me think of an example. So for example, we don't have the ability to see at an account level an engagement journey. So right now we can see engagement from all of our specific contacts, but when we look at the account in aggregate, there's not an easy way to see what that journey looks like from both a sales and marketing perspective. I want to be able to see that. So I would raise that concern with the marketing automation team, and they would help vet tools and bring demos in, so I and others could hear the capabilities of all these different tools, and we would go through an evaluation process. And at a company like State Street, the process is, much more cumbersome, whereas because there are so many people involved and there are so many voices that we would want included, so it does take a bit longer. But to Peter's point, talking about startups, for a startup, it could be an advantage to have a smaller staff, because you might be able to move more quickly as long as you can secure the funding for this tool, and it could very quickly help improve efficiency in your work. So really what is most important is from my perspective, is identifying the problem. That's the most important thing, because if you're vetting tools without understanding the problem, you're going to end up with something that isn't helpful fully.
So I 100% agree with you. So instead of calling them problems, I always called them opportunities.
Opportunities, sorry.
To be like the positive spin. But I completely agree with you. I was with an organization one time that had this tech stack, and they were the larger holding company, and they wanted us to use it, and they were trying to force us to use it. I said no, because one, we should be building a stack around our business, not changing our business to fit the stack, right? And so I think a lot of people don't understand necessarily at first that to understand the data you need to collect, or the systems that you need, you have to start with, what is that objective? What are you trying to collect? And then what is the technology that can be brought in to do that for you? So it's a process, right?
Completely. To me, it's like that saying, measure twice, buy once. So if you spend 70% of your time figuring out all of the different elements that you need addressed through this tool, that will make the tool selection and purchase process significantly easier and take much less time. To me, understanding the opportunities, as you said, that's a better word, I like that,
try to keep it positive, So.
Is where the most time should be spent.
I wish I was as strategic as you guys. I feel like I used to look after marketing technology at another corporate, actually, that I worked at, large South African bank, global now. And our marketing tech stack was driven by what the CRM system was ultimately. So what did some anonymous IT person decide would be the CRM platform for sales enablement? And that set the bar for what we could use from a marketing standpoint, because they had to integrate. To Sam's point, having that end-to-end view, you have to use platforms that work well together. And now, as Salesforce and Microsoft and others have brought up the market, and everyone's merging together, the options become far fewer. I guess when I look back at my startup life, I selected tech stack based on a for sure need, and I think Sam looking at the opportunities there, or the problems that we're trying to solve, were that did come into my head. But more often than not, I was like, I'm on my own here. What tool can automate as much as my life as possible? And also, what tool do I think the devs in the business will enjoy working with? Because if I bring in like really beastly clunky tool, they're going to hate it, and therefore hate me for putting them through it. So customer IO, there's others out there that devs love it, because it is almost you code it, and you've got to understand, as a marketer, you have to be pretty digitally native to get those platforms working, and devs love them because they integrate into systems really easily. It was kind of a less strategic decision, more just how easy this is to plug and play, and certainly at the other corporate, it was ultimately what systems work with the existing IT stack that we have in-house. And I see that a little bit at State Street. Sam has great ideas, and we've definitely got platforms that we'd love to work with that don't necessarily work with their existing IT stack, and you've got to work within the confines that you're given, I think.
So that's a challenge, definitely. And coming back to the small companies, we'll call it startup versus enterprise level, and this is what I've personally gone through, as well as there was an organization that was brought in to help digitally transform that organization. And the CEO sat down with me one day. She's like, isn't this great? Like, we get to like build from scratch. I said, it's the complete opposite. I said, we have to untangle everything and then put it back together and then build, versus at a startup, nothing's built yet, right? So you can just kind of build it right the first time. And so I think a lot of companies definitely are challenged that way. And what I've also seen, and I'm just wondering, because over the last few years, especially since the pandemic, I think just companies have been moving expeditiously in their digital transformation efforts, because we become more of a digital world, is managing the internal culture. And Peter, you just sort of touched upon this a little bit, like with the dev team and like different teams implementing and or utilizing. Because marketing is a driver of utilizing new technologies that do make their way across the organization, whether it's new sales processes or new data capture across the organization. What are you seeing from a cultural standpoint? And with the advent of AI, and now people talking more about agentic AI and applying AI just across the stack in different capacities, whether it's machine learning or it's generative, right? What are you seeing from a cultural standpoint and how you're building your systems? Again, we're trying to create personalization at scale, but what are you seeing across the organization from a cultural standpoint wanting to implement or adopt these new technologies or new methodologies?
I'm so conflicted on this. A few years ago, I saw AI as like the next crypto, right? And largely elements of it I still see like that. There's AI, generative AI, this and everything in the startup world, and many of those businesses will just fold and disappear. But AI I guess it goes beyond LLMs, but AI as an actual technology is here to stay and will completely transform the way economies move. And you either accept that, and how my kids are going to learn at school is largely probably going to be through AI or some language model. And so you've got to accept it. And I think marketers that don't, within 3 to 5 years, will be totally left behind. So, and this is significant change, and it's happening now, and it will be complete within half a decade. So I would say internal teams are clued up on that. And there is, as a business, you could view a large corporate like State Street or others that I've worked at as laggards, but they're not actually. They're relatively front-footed in the AI game. We've just had Copilot, as many other corporates have had, rolled out globally, and it is one of those things that you don't have to explain to people that have been at the organization 30 years. They just know how to use it. It works, and suddenly everyone is using AI to drive efficiency and improve their day-to-day lives at work. And so when you have these conversations around bringing in platforms that enable greater personalization, or you want to use the AI capabilities of existing platforms that we have in-house, people are far warmer to it than I think they were 2 years ago. And I think people have gone through that mindset shift around, is AI just a passing trend, to actually, I've got to get behind this because it's going to completely change the way that we do our roles. And Sam, I know you and I are both actually on the AI committee at State Street. So that's something clearly that is fundamentally shifting culture, isn't it?
Totally. And the other thing that I'll say about AI is that AI is changing a bit now, but we've been leveraging forms of AI for a while. A lot of our engagement information that we have is aggregated through AI, and we don't think about that being AI. It is similar to how AI works. And so I think that the transition, while it feels like AI is sort of this really hot topic right now, all of the conferences I've been to this past year have been extremely AI heavy. to the point where I'm like, is there a session that is not about AI? So
let's move on to a different topic. Yes. Yeah.
no, but it's, I mean, like Peter was saying, it's happening, and we all just need to learn how to leverage it in a way that works for our business. So from an adoption standpoint, I think there have been baby steps that have helped get people more comfortable with accepting information in an automated way. That's sort of one point. The question that you had about global differences, I will say there are. So I think in North America and EMEA, there is much more of a willingness to leverage some of these tools, these more automated tools, AI tools. In APAC, maybe specifically in like Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, Japan, there is a skepticism around the safety of data related to AI. And so there's less of a willingness to sort of move to these more automated tools because they want to keep data safe close to the vest to make sure it's protected. So there are absolutely global differences. And you touched upon it a little bit with GDPR. I think there are multiple teams involved in deciding what is appropriate in each region. So there are, different opt-in standards in every region, in every country. So these are things that we need to be thinking about when we're leveraging AI for campaigns, for example. It really is just having local teams be able to educate global leaders to make the right decisions for that region. I think just talking to each other and being candid about what is needed and what is actually happening is one of the benefits of having a global company.
Yeah, and having feet on the ground and grabbing those local insights. I think it's super key. And even you just sort of mentioned the Asia Pacific region, and even what I've seen like in Hong Kong and areas, that just the way people want to be communicated with there is completely different than other areas. It's not about just a one-to-many. It's oftentimes that just kind of one-to-one email. It's a different culture, a different level of respect and communication that culture or cultures may want. And so it's not easy because it's almost like you have to look at it from the big perspective, but then break it down regionally. So how do you build, what have you found as the optimal, I guess, structure for a marketing team to be able to manage this at scale? Sam, from your perspective, like how have you been able to build the team to really manage this and work with all of the regional teams? And are you also responsible for also hiring people in those regions across the globe as well? Does that sit under your remit, or you have an influence in that?
So my manager and Peter's manager, also named Peter, he is responsible for hiring the teams on the ground in each region or country. So, and they are meant to be those regional or country level experts. My team is a bit smaller. And so the way that I structure my team and the way I think works well, I mean, I don't know what Peter would say. I feel like it works well, is that I have people on my team focus on a specific region and a specific strategy. So they work really closely with people in Peter's role across the globe. So my team relies on people that are local. So my team is based in both Boston and India. So so they rely on the team members that are local to understand those regional nuances as we build out our digital programs. And that's how, I don't know if that answers your question, but that structure seems to work well for us. Peter, I don't know if you say something different.
There's so many ways to structure a global team, right? Yeah, you can structure it around region and country, or you can structure it around thematics. We're actually split. So half the business is more focused on an intermediary audience, and that structure is by region, by country, and you would have a lead marketing manager in each country, sat in each local office, and then on the institutional side, we gear ourselves around thematics. So you would have someone that looks after fixed income for the entire region and is an expert on fixed income. Both have pros, both have cons. I think the mixture is interesting, and if in worlds where you combine resources, that I think that becomes excellent, because you have audience and region experts and
Yep.
also thematic experts, and kind of can't be both. And so I think the combination of teams really that drives the optimum output. So yeah, just to.
So I'm gonna put an acronym together: CCT. Culture, channel, and theme. So you have the person, the culture expert, the channel expert, and the thematic expert.
There you go.
Essentially,
I love the
CCT, the new marketing acronym to hit the streets. So, what's next for marketing at SSGA?
What's next for marketing at SSGA? I love that.
Yeah. So what's the evolution? What's the evolution? We're talking personalization at scale. What do you anticipate is next to kind of continue this process? And anything that we should be looking out for or that's launching that would be exciting to see?
There's lots I could say, and much of which I probably get in trouble for. And that's why Sam and I are both.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll just have to wait and see. We'll have to keep our eyes and ears out, like across the press.
Yeah, we could give you a generic
rolling out,
like, let's see what AI does to the industry and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But there's far more juicy things we could talk about. But we're going slightly red here because we're not sure what or if we can talk about any of them. So we might just leave you with that.
Okay, that works. A coy answer makes us want more.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I will say from a marketing perspective, just generally, and I think this is something that all organizations should work on, is just becoming sort of smarter with the data that they have. Just looking at your tools that you have and understanding what your needs are. I mean, it's an evolution because everything always changes. So staying up to date on what platforms might work best for us, staying up to date on, the tools that we currently have and optimizations that are being made to those tools. So in a general sense, I think we're always evolving from a marketing perspective because that's what the industry calls for. So to me, that's what's next for marketing, is just evolving the industry, evolving with the way financial services is going. So generic answer.
No, but it's not, because that's hard. But what you're talking about is hard. Like, so measuring true attribution, because there's a blend of live and digital, right? Because events have, to me, I feel like they've grown larger now than they were pre-pandemic. Just there's so many different events that people are attending. And how are you measuring kind of the efficacy of a sponsorship or bespoke events you're throwing, in addition to your advertising and experiences people are having across your digital platforms? It's really not easy. And as you're saying, like, how are you collecting that data? How are you processing that data? How are you using that data? It's a challenge. It's still a real challenge. And you could throw AI into it, but it's still a real challenge to measure all of that and make decisions, but we do the best we can. This has been a fabulous topic. Just the insights alone are incredibly valuable. And I just want to say, to Peter and Sam, thank you. Thank you for joining me today on Gold Theory.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. See you next time.